You're listening to the Membership Site Success Podcast, where you learn from successful entrepreneurs how to build and run a profitable membership site so that you too can generate recurring revenue for your business month after month. And now, here's your host, membership site expert, Vic Dorfman.
On today's episode of the Membership Site Success Podcast, I'm pleased to have Shane Melaugh from imimpact.com, and also well known for Thrive Leads and Thrive Themes, which has become really popular in the online world recently. And first of all, Shane is an incredibly intelligent, thoughtful guy, very successful business person, and just a really cool guy. I met him in a very strange way, which you'll hear about in the show. I met him in Bangkok in a very unusual way, and he's going to share what he's learned in business over the years, what he's learned in terms of productivity and routines and systems to keep his business growing and functioning smoothly as it scales and grows outside of just himself. So this is an interview that you're really going to enjoy. It's very casual and fun. So make sure to stay tuned and listen, and go ahead and leave your comments and your ratings on iTunes and enjoy. So the first question that I ask all of my guests is, how did you get into online entrepreneurship?
I guess the short answer is reluctantly, because I was actually intimidated by the technology aspect of it, and so I wanted to be an entrepreneur before I came online, and I remember my attitude being like, oh, I guess it would be good to have a website, but that's too complicated. I can't build one myself, and I can't afford to hire someone to build one for me. So I kind of just dismissed that out of hand in the beginning, and only once I realized that this was really the missing aspect in what I was trying to do. Like at the time, I was selling computer hardware, and it just became clear that, and I was selling it like on eBay and stuff like that, but it just became clear that without my own website, this was never going to go anywhere. And I finally started taking a closer look at how can I actually build my own website, and found out it's not actually that difficult. And then with that, moved into this online marketing space. And it's also because I guess I had a couple of attempts at businesses where it became clear to me that the missing thing was marketing, and that at some point I guess I noticed that having the next business idea wasn't going to make any difference unless I acquired some marketing skills to actually get people's attention to this business.
And so that's when because I remember following your blog kind of when it was first starting up, and I think the thing that kind of launched you into the public eye, online anyway, was your SEO course.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that and how you got your kind of kickstart into this world?
Yeah, so the SEO course was one of those things that it's true that was like my first proper success, at least as at the time I was the thing. I stopped selling computer hardware at that time, and I was just building affiliate websites and doing SEO for them. So I think at the time, pretty much all of my income was coming from as an affiliate, like on ClickBank and whatnot. I got commissions from these products I was promoting, and I think at the time I was also still working a part-time job. So that's what was going on at the time, and I never planned to create a course on SEO. My blog at the time, so I Am Impact, was also it wasn't really planned, because the reason I started it was because I started learning all this marketing stuff. Like I said, I realized that was necessary. And I kind of just thought, I'm learning all this marketing stuff, and I might as well have a blog where I kind of write about what's going on, because I was going to process this anyway. I tend to process things in writing. And it was just kind of the rework principle, where a product that happens anyway in your work, you might as well publish it or turn that into something that other people can use. So the blog was at first like I'm learning this stuff anyway. I'm going to write about it anyway. I might as well do it publicly. And it was then unexpectedly kind of more successful than the other stuff I was doing. And from the crowd I built around this, it was a very small crowd at the time, but I noticed that they were most interested in SEO, so I wrote more about that. And then I noticed that there were some issues that just weren't being addressed, that there were some very specific problems people had with SEO that nobody was addressing, and that I could address in an information product. And so it kind of just came out of, I started going this direction without really planning to ever end up there. But I did end up there. And when I decided I wanted to make a product, I tried to do the best possible job I could do at creating a useful product. And that worked out really well. And then it just kind of kept going like that. Where also, I guess it's also because I did affiliate sites at the time. I wasn't really interested in most of these niches that my affiliate sites were on, because it was just opportunity based, right? Oh, there's a ClickBank product here that I think I can promote, so I'm going to build a website based, about whatever the topic was. But I wasn't actually interested in that topic. And the thing that I was interested in was the marketing itself.
Mm-hmm.
Like the process of, at the time, SEO, I kind of got into that, but also in general, the process of how do you get someone on a website to pay attention? How do you connect with them? How do you get them to convert? And deeper and deeper into all this marketing stuff. And then the affiliate stuff kind of fell by the wayside, and now marketing is my thing, right?
And I wonder how many of our listeners kind of had a parallel story, because my trajectory was very similar to yours. I started out with a keyword research course that I sold on the Warrior Forum, and it was my first kind of smashing success. And I was like, oh, well, you can make money online. Cool. Nor am I particularly technical. And I think a lot of people are probably intimidated by this, quote unquote online thing, because, I have to set up a website and there's all this technical stuff involved. But I'm not really technical. You're not really technical yet. You're building WordPress plugins and I'm helping people set up membership sites. So it's really, I think, just a matter of getting in there and doing something, and just taking some kind of positive action, and some good will come out of it, even if it's just learning, how to fail.
Yeah. I think it's also, it's true that it is there are technical challenges, but I think there are it's a lot easier than one might think before one actually starts doing it, because there are so many systems and products and whatnot that you can use, services you can use that do all of the difficult stuff for you, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think that's become more true than when I started, even.
Now we have Zapier,
it's really not. Yeah. It's just like you have, and even just WordPress. WordPress has become so much easier and so much more customizable, more flexible, and so on. So yeah, it's really. And like you say, I totally agree that the thing you have to do is you have to jump in and just start, right? And that's also something where I see a lot of people basically sitting on the sidelines for too long, waiting for the perfect opportunity, when really the right opportunity is only going to arise when you're in the trenches and actually doing something.
Definitely. And also, one thing that struck me about your blog was how much I felt, and this ties into a question about video, about the use of video, but how much I felt like when I read your blog and watched your videos, how trustworthy you come across. And I think, I don't know if that's just your natural personality or if that's deliberate. Can you talk a little bit about why you think you give that impression? Or do other people kind of feel the same way, or is it just me?
I do get that. Yeah, I do get that a lot. And I think in part I believe that in part you probably can't fake that to a certain degree, because there is one aspect of this is that I think I'm literally incapable of doing certain things that would be typically trust breaking. So if you're reading someone's marketing website, one of the things that could happen that would be a trust breaker essentially is they promote a product, right? They are super excited about and tell you and promise you the world about some product, mm-hmm. and send you off to buy it, and the product turns out to be rubbish. And I'm incapable of doing that. I cannot do that. like, let me explain like this. There have been many opportunities for me to make more money. All right. If all I wanted to do was make more money, there still are. There's so many opportunities. It'd be very easy. Like, for example, not that I'm that well known, but I have a large enough audience, and I have, let's say, enough authority behind me that I could easily create a super high priced coaching product of some sort, and kind of phone it in, which a lot of people in this space do, that kind of thing, right? Where you just say, well, let's just do the launch first product, let's start $1,000 for it, and then once we have all these customers, whatever, we'll do some webinars, right? We'll record some stuff. It's just going to be me talking about marketing, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we'll get, maybe we'll get like 20% refunds or something, but we'll still have made $1 million.
Yeah.
And that's something I could definitely do, no problem. Like, I have enough of a platform to do that. But it's just something I'm absolutely incapable of doing. I'm absolutely incapable of just like creating a product for the sake of grabbing someone's money, right? And you can't buy that from me even for $1 million. Like, even if came along and told me, this is a guaranteed way to put $1 million in your pocket in the next 30 days. I cannot do that. I absolutely cannot do that. So I think that's a factor where, that's just how I am. I just can't do this kind of thing. And I think you can't fake that. So I think that the long-term effect is that if you do follow my blog and if you do read my stuff and so on, I never violate that trust. And that's something can't fake, right? There's no book you can read, there's no technique you can do, there's no way you can present yourself or way you can phrase something or magic words you can use that make people trust you to the degree where someone has been following you for 5 years and you have never ever violated their trust. So I think that's a big.
And it's interesting too, because when I watch your sales videos for your WordPress plugins or whatever it is that I'm watching, my impression is that you have taken all of the kind of rules of direct response marketing for creating sales videos and kind of absorbed them, but then kicked them out the window and did your own thing that's more like, I don't know, your videos kind of have a formula that start out like, look, everything you've heard is bullshit, and here's the real deal, and here's why, and here's some proof. Now, if you want this thing, here it is, it's going to work. If not, cool. Like, it's very kind of like personal. Kind of like when you meet somebody in person, they're not trying to convince you of all this stuff. They're just trying to get to know you a bit, show you the facts of a situation. If you want it, okay. If you don't, okay. Like, I don't know. It's very organic, the way that you put those together, which actually leads to my next question. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah. Well, I was just thinking that one of the things that I remember doing deliberately when I started out with this, with the selling, was that I didn't like sales messages that sounded desperate. Okay. And a lot of sales messages, if you kind of take a step back and look at it, they're very desperate. Like the guy doing the selling is so desperate to get your money. And that's I don't like doing it. That's the way I see it. The job of marketing is essentially, now that other people are producing, like, I'm not a programmer, so other people on my team produce the products. The job of my developers is to create absolutely amazingly good products. The job of my marketing is not to try and push as many people into the top of the funnel as possible. It's not to desperately try and get some kind of money out of you no matter what. The job of my marketing is simply to tell the right people about what this product actually does. Yeah. That's all that's needed, right? And I think that's also a big difference between basically, if you're selling hopes and dreams, then you're kind of desperate for people to buy your pitch and to give you money and hopefully not refund when they find out you can't deliver. But it's not the situation I put myself in, right? All I have to do, because what's the point? Like, I'm not trying to sell a lead generation plugin to someone who doesn't have what's the point? All I have to do is people who do have a website and know that building a mailing list is important. All they need to do is understand what, in this case, Thrive Leads actually does. That's all they need, right? And if they do understand that, and they know for them, because it is that good, right? And so I think that's why the thing you say about my sales message is I avoid being very hyperbolous, and I avoid a lot of the stuff that I guess we're used to from marketing videos, because it's just not necessary.
And I don't know what you make, but I imagine that by using kind of an honest strategy and just being yourself, you still get to pay your bills. And the interesting thing is too, is the longer that you do something, whether it's like business or an art or weightlifting, like the more your personality starts to come out like as an expression in that medium. So in business, you are kind of the expression of your art, the art of who you are as a human being. And okay, that's who you are, and that's how your sales message is going to manifest, and that's how your marketing is going to look, your attention to design, which is kind of cool. You can sort of look at people's sites and kind of know who they are a little bit on the inside. And a big part of your marketing is video. And your use of video is really, in my opinion, kind of the biggest part of your, let's say, it's the part of your marketing that really catches me the most. And so could you talk a little bit about your use of video and, what role it plays in your business?
Yeah, I've been doing video for a long time, and actually I recently realized that I think I kind of I've forgotten how just a normal blog post that doesn't have a video attached to it. I don't really know how to do that anymore, so maybe I have to relearn that a bit. But yeah, I'm not even sure. I can't even really remember why I started doing video this much, but it is something that I very deliberately practiced for a long time, and I still hone that as a craft. I try to make every video better than the last one in some way. So what I like about video is that it allows me to have, it makes it easier for me to have like this face level communication with someone, because I can sit down and talk to the camera like I would be talking to a person.
Yes.
And that's something I like. I like to have that kind of vibe in my communication. So, and somehow, yeah, it's just become this medium that I'm comfortable with doing. And for certain things, I do think it's also, it's more useful. Video is sometimes more powerful of a medium than written text. And I really like it for things like, where you can just demonstrate something on screen or something like that. So for that, it can be very useful. But apart from that, it's just somehow a medium that I became comfortable with. And like I said, by now I can't even really remember why I started video this much, or it's just like become my thing, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it sort of emulates being in front of somebody and talking to them person to person a little bit. And even all of the marketing benefits aside, just kind of being on camera and bringing awareness to how you speak, all your little tics, whether or not you're enunciating, whether you're using a bunch of bullshit filler words like, whatever, just bringing that awareness to your communication is a powerful personal development tool, all business purposes aside. But since we're talking about the face-to-face communication, I just wanted to take a second and mention the way that we met, which is kind of interesting, in my opinion, because I was in Bangkok, and I was staying in some hotel on Soi 10 or something. I don't even remember the Soi, somewhere in the main area. And I'm walking back with my laundry one night, and I see you walking with some guy, and you're like dressed in really nice clothing, and you're walking, and I thought, is that guy, that Shane Melaugh guy? I'm like, Shane Melaugh. And you're like, what? Who is this? And I come up and I introduce myself, and I tell you that I'm an internet marketer. And you're like, well, we're just on our way to get a bite to eat. Do you want to come join us? So real quick, I changed my clothes. I came and joined you guys, and I got to chat with you and your business partner. And then there were a few other guys there as well. And where I'm going with this is, how important do you think it is in business? Obviously, if we hadn't met like that, I probably wouldn't be on this podcast with you right now. So how important do you think it is to kind of put in FaceTime with important people, or, people in general?
I would say that's very important. By the way, that was the first and only time that someone recognized me on the street so far. So I believe with I think you usually have to have a way bigger audience than I have before that kind of thing happens. So, but yeah, that was pretty funny. But yeah, in terms of putting in FaceTime, this is something that I wish someone would have told me at some point in my life. It's just how important networking is, essentially, because networking is a bit of a dry
Cliche,
term to
yeah.
use, I guess. Yeah, but the people and how they feel towards you makes such a huge difference in your life, and this is something that I am not good at all. This is not, I'm.
Are you an introvert or?
I'm very, very introverted, and I used to be that very shy, introverted, unpopular, clumsy kid, basically, right? I used to be that guy. And certainly I'm much more relaxed in social situations and whatnot now, but I still essentially have that problem. Like networking, if you want to put it that way, is one of my weaknesses. I'm terrible at just all that. Like, I'm not even sure what I'm bad at. That's how bad I am. But I have seen many times that the connections you make are so important. Like, for example, I've had two business partners with whom I've launched two like larger projects. And the first one was SE Cockpit with Sam.
Right.
Or Swiss Made Marketing, I should say, was the company name. And now Thrive Themes with Paul. And in both cases, these businesses would have not been possible at all without that other person, right? Without Sam or Paul, respectively. And it's just like, it's invaluable, right? It's because it's completely different from having an employee who does some work. It's like having a business partner who really pulls their own weight and can really bring this unique value to a business. It's invaluable. You can't buy that. And that's just, so even for me where I definitely don't have a big network, I basically don't know what I'm doing when it comes to that. I can clearly see that the people and the people you can relate to and so on make the biggest difference. Because like Thrive Themes, like I said, Thrive Themes is amazing for me. It's my favorite thing I've ever worked on. It's going really well. This would not even remotely be possible if I didn't have Paul to basically do half the work. And yeah, so I guess that's something I wish I would have known about sooner. If I had any idea about this, I would have, because what I do is I tend to focus on things and invest a lot of time into something to get better at it. And no doubt that can be done for the networking skill as well. And I wish I would have invested some years of my life in that, earlier on. Now I'm kind of too busy.
I guess it worked out in the end, because
sure, yeah.
Maybe the purpose of networking is to kind of build your business, elevate each other's lifestyles, and provide each other value. And I also want to point out too that I don't go to a lot of business conferences, and I kind of keep to myself. I don't like going to co-working spaces. I find them distracting, and just a lot of people are just sitting there like talking about everything they're going to do, but they're not doing shit, which bugs me. But when you do go to these conferences or events or whatever, and you meet people, my policy has always been that I'm just going to be myself. And I'm not even going to talk about business. I'm just going to talk about, I don't know, whatever is natural to you. Music, girls, travel, weightlifting. You're at a business event, so invariably you're going to get into business talk. Why force it? It's kind of like that desperation thing you're talking about. And some guys are throwing business cards like ninjas, and it just reeks of desperation. And I think if you could just be yourself and you connect with somebody on a personal level, then all of the business stuff will follow anyway, because you want to do business with people you like, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I also actually noticed that most of the contacts I have who are like, valuable contacts and who I'm in touch with regularly, it usually started off not being about business. And I think that also helps you stand out. Like, for example, Gail from Authority Hacker, who's become a friend and who I met in Budapest. And when he reached out to me, can't really remember what the initial thing was, but one of the first things he did is he invited me to some festival. Just like, oh, I have some extra tickets, you come to a festival. And it kind of turned into a business thing later because we're both entrepreneurs, and like you said, it's inevitably going to happen. But yeah, that's actually true for quite a lot of the connections I made. So I think a cynical way of saying that, I think I've been played like that quite a lot with the ones where, it's worked out. But yeah, that's a good one. I'm going to remember that.
Right on. You mentioned business partners a second ago, and I wasn't going to ask this. Well, I didn't have it on my questions list, but it's come up in a lot of conversations I've had recently when I spoke with Dan Norris from WP Curve, and he said something like, I'd rather be a 50% owner of $1 million business than 100% owner of, a $150,000 business. How important has been having a business partner for you? Some people are against it, some people are for it. It's kind of like a very dividing, polarizing question.
Well, I quite like to, the question of partnership and the question of the people you work with are probably two different questions. But something that I remember seeing a TED talk by Ernesto Cirolli, who said that any successful business needs 3 people. It needs one person to make the product, one person to sell the product, and one person to manage the money. And of course, that would scale. So you'd have one person responsible for all of the people who create, one person responsible for all of the people who sell, one person responsible for all the financial stuff. Mm-hmm. And in my experience, that's been very, very true. And trying to do it all by yourself, I think, destines you to fail, especially if you want to go to scale. Right? You can't, like the lifestyle business type thing, you can do by yourself. So, as an example, you have your blog, you build your blog audience, you sell an ebook, and you make, a couple grand a month, let's say. At that scale, you can definitely do it all yourself, no problem. But if we're talking about a business that you want to scale to reach a large audience and to really, fulfill its potential in the market, you cannot do that by yourself. No way.
So you kind of handle the marketing aspect?
And then the question is, yeah, that's my role, yeah. But yeah, in terms of the partnership, the question becomes like, do you want to partner with people or do you just want to hire people? And that's a discussion by itself. But here's the thing. The way I see it, here's one thing that I realized, is that the skill level or the contribution that people can bring to the table in a company is, if you imagine, let's be very one-dimensional about it, and just let's say, how good is this person as a employee? Okay, let's assume, so we have an employee. How good are they? How good they find by the value they bring to your company, right?
Okay.
Now, you might imagine that there are people who aren't very good, and then there are people who are really good, and it's like, it goes like this, right? The people who are really good are better than the people who aren't very good. But really, the distribution, in my experience, is on a power curve, is on an exponential curve, which is to say that the really excellent employee isn't 20% better than the good employee. He's 20 times better than the good employee.
It's the star.
Okay. Yeah. And so what we have is, and there, if you find people who are like, if you find these rare people who are at the very top, who can just produce so much more value than anyone else, they are worth partnering up with, and they deserve to be partners, in my opinion, because there's such a remarkable difference there, right? Rare to find those people, and for me, one of the things that I look for is essentially work ethic. There are some people who can just produce work output that goes above and beyond what almost anyone else you meet is capable of. And those are the people, in both with Sam, that was the case, with Paul, that is the case, where that was the main criteria really why I decided to partner up with them, because they demonstrated to me that they were capable of just doing incredible amounts of work when it's necessary. And certain, there's also a certain autonomy where you can give someone a task and they just run with it and just know that they get it. They're going to do an amazing job. And that is so rare to find that when you do find it, you might as well make them a partner.
Wow. Very interesting. Well, you mentioned a bit earlier too that there's a limit to how much we can do personally, or even if you have a superstar partner who can output a lot of work, there's still a limit to how many hours are in the day and how much energy you have to expend. So I would like, if you could please, to sort of talk about your business processes, your systems that you have in place, automation, delegation, kind of the work the system frameworks that allow you to run smoothly as you scale and allow you to identify bottlenecks and points of failure in your business, and so you can continually improve.
Okay, so systems are very, very important to me. I'm totally a systems guy in my business and also in my personal life. So essentially, for me, I'm quite disorganized, and I've just noticed in my life that anything that isn't governed by a system that I've set up it's just chaos. And so I have systems for basically everything and I need to have systems for my life.
Can you give an example?
Not to derail, essentially. So as an example, well, for example, for my nutrition, right? I follow a system that ensures that I eat healthy, and because I can easily just pig out on food, and I can also, it goes to both extremes, right? If you put a packet of cookies in front of me, I'm going to devour all of those cookies, no second thought. And also, I tend to be a bit workaholic, and I also go through phases where I forget to eat. So, this has happened to me way more than it should, where, I get up and I'm like, I don't have time for breakfast right now, I'll just start work. Next time I glance at my watch, or at the time, it's 7 p.m, and I haven't eaten anything.
We've had a nice little
Which
fast.
is also not good, right? Yeah, which is also not a great habit, right? And so, if my goal is to eat well and to make sure that I have healthy nutrition and so on, the current system I'm following is that I have basically at the same time every day I have a large green smoothie, and I also basically follow a system of how I create that smoothie, right? And that's like one big meal that I have every day, and that's healthy. That guarantees, okay, it's one healthy meal a day. And then the second one is that I have a large snack, and my system it also has to be simple, right? The system has to be simple so you can follow it. So basically, I have a large green smoothie every day. I have a large salad every day, and then for the third meal, I just have whatever else I want. But by having these 2 points that are always the same in my that the body of what I eat is healthy, and I ensure that so even if I do have an unhealthy third meal, because I've already had all this food, I'm not going to eat a huge quantity of unhealthy food because I just don't have the appetite for it anymore. Mm-hmm. And like I said, without a system governing my nutrition, it just derails, and I'm either eating really badly, or I'm eating really irregularly, or I'm eating too much, or I'm not eating enough, or something goes wrong. But I have to have a system, and I also have the same system to make sure that I get that my sleep cycle stays more or less in line, because it's very easy for me to suddenly fall into the thing where I'm working until 5 a.m. and then I sleep in the whatever. So for that kind of thing, I need systems. And in business, what I've found is that I think you can, up to a team size of maybe 5 people, something around that, I think you can do quite well. If you're killing, you do get to a point where you absolutely must have systems. And for us, for example, in the development process, that is hugely important. We have a very detailed system that makes sure that every product, goes through all of the stages that it needs to go through for development, like design, development, testing, and so on. Mm-hmm. And we have, and this is, by now this is a very intricate system that we use to make sure that, and also the same goes for, make sure that all the support requests are fulfilled, make sure that all the bug reports come to the right person and are fixed if necessary, and all that.
And it's all documented, right?
It's quite an intricate system. It's all documented, and we use a Jira project management system for this.
What is it?
Jira, Atlassian Jira.
Jira. Jira?
Yeah, yes.
Jira.
And this is specifically made for software development projects and that kind of thing. Not necessarily the first thing I would suggest starting with, because it's extremely complex. But yeah, at a certain stage, it's the right kind of thing. And I'm also doing the same thing. So right now, I have a couple of people here who are basically interning for me as marketers. And it's the same thing, we basically established systems for how we work, how we communicate, how we keep track of our tasks, and so on. And I think the main thing I can say is that you have to make sure, especially when you see things slipping, right? When you see that things are slipping, you have to put systems in place to govern those things, because the mistake that most people make is that they say, "Oh, this isn't good right now." And they go and rush to put out the fire. Then they say, "I'm going to try harder, right? To prevent this from happening, I'm going to pay more attention to it, or I'm going to try harder to prevent it from happening." That never works. That never works. If that were the solution in the first place, things go wrong and if there's no system to make sure that you keep track of it, it's going to fall apart again. And then just thinking that if you think that I'm just going to try harder to prevent this from happening again, you're underestimating how much distraction and other important stuff is going to come up in the future.
Yeah. And you're also underestimating the degree to which humans are governed by unconscious automatic processes. And there's even a whole subfield of study called automaticity, which deals with the degree to which we're unconscious, essentially, about all these habits that we have. And I know I always put my key in the wrong part of my book bag as I'm leaving my house, and then later I'm looking for it and I'm like, where the hell did I put my key? And inevitably it's in the wrong pocket, despite my best effort to put it in the little mesh pocket where it's easily visible. It's just like those stupid little things. But on a business, they could be...
That's actually another example where also another system I have is that I have the same ritual for, taking my keys and my wallet and whatnot, and I put them in the same place every day. Like, as soon as I come in, I take them out of my pockets, I put them in the same place when I go out. Because if I don't do that, I'm going to be in the situation where, I forgot my wallet and I don't know where my keys are, I don't know where I put my phone, and so on. That's also an example of where it's such a tiny thing, but how many people are constantly complaining that they always lose their phone or their keys or whatever? I know. And the solution they propose is, well, I'm going to try harder to remember next time. No, you have to have a system for this, even if it's as small as that.
Yeah, and you brought up sleep, and I just want to echo that for a second, because a lot of these podcasts and business talks are focused solely on business, but I'm big into fitness. I know you are as well, and nutrition. And without going to the gym, without having a sleep hygiene routine on lock, I wouldn't be even a quarter as effective as I am. And for me, what I do as well with sleep is at a certain time, all the lights go off, flux goes on my computer, magnesium oil gets slathered on my body, cold shower, all these little things. And then by the time you're actually ready to sleep, you're just off, and you wake up feeling refreshed. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs neglect their physicality, their physical being. And they think they're doing more work because they're putting in more hours. But I say that they're actually shortchanging themselves. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. So I also have the tendency to do this. But I think I have an advantage because for a long time, the number one thing in my life was martial arts for a long time. So,
what kind?
I started with judo as a child.
Oh, nice.
But then in my teens, I was training Wing Chun and some other, actually quite a lot of other stuff as well. But basically, I'd say for 10 years of my life, that was all I cared about. And I think what that helped me with is get into the habit of exercising a lot, so that even when I'm not, even when I'm essentially neglecting that part of my life, I'm still exercising. It's because I basically almost never drop to zero. At the very least I will do is exercise, maybe go to the gym 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the absolute least I will do. And I think that's something that, just because over such a long time I established a routine of exercising a lot every day, it kind of raises the bar of how bad it can get when you drop the ball. And so I think that saved me a bit. But I also have this experience, I also have like the workaholic tendency and the tendency to drop the lifestyle and health stuff in favor of work.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's also something that I noticed, and especially like in the last 18 months or so, I've been much more on top of that to make sure that doesn't happen, to make sure that I do take the time needed to stay in good shape and just make sure that I get my exercise and all that. Because like you say, I think it's essentially delusional, because yes, you can do more work today by skipping the gym and shoving some fast food in your mouth because you don't have time to cook something proper, and working until 3 a.m. And you can then, depending on how hardcore you are, you can then sleep for 2 or 3 hours, get up again, do the whole thing again. And you can do that maybe for 3 days, 5 days, 10 days. But at some point, this stops. And your productivity is going to grind to a halt, and you're going to pay the price.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that this is also a model through which I view the world. There are certain things where you can accomplish something via great effort, and there are other things where the main thing that matters is not how much effort you put in right now, but how consistent you are. And a simple example of that is brushing your teeth. If you want to make sure that your teeth don't rot and fall out and whatnot, the solution isn't to brush your teeth really hard for 3 hours now,
Right.
and then you're good for the next 5 months. There's no amount of intensity or duration of brushing your teeth that you can put in today that will make it unnecessary to brush your teeth again tomorrow, right? And so there's just no way to increase the effort or intensity to compensate for the effect of consistency. And with your productivity, it is like that as well. Yeah, you can go hard today and maybe for a week, like I said, but the thing that's really going to make a difference over time, the thing that's going to make a difference, in a 1 year, 5 year, 10-year span, is your consistency. And so if you work a few hours less because you're going to the gym, and you take more time to make sure you have healthy nutrition, and you sleep 8 hours a day, and you keep that up, and so every day you're working, let's say, 2 hours less than the other guy,
Yep.
but you're keeping your lifestyle, you're keeping that intact. Over 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, you'll be leaving the other guy behind by a huge margin. And that's something I totally believe in, yeah.
Consistency, persistence. I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up too, because I don't know about you, but I never work really, I can never do more than 4 hours of like real concentrated productive work per day. That's like my max output. Like I could sit on the computer and answer emails and do all these like bullshit menial tasks, because that doesn't require any real energy, any real soul. But if we're talking about like actual high level business tasks, like 4 hours and that's it, man, I'm burned out. I need to go to the gym, to the beach. And I don't know how people do more than that. Like maybe I'm just weak in that regard, but doing it day after day, having a good solid routine where you wake up refreshed and ready to go, I'd rather put in those 4 hours than put in 8 shitty hours.
Yeah, I think it's also, this is another thing where, you found that to be your thing, right? 4 hours is what you can do. And if you build a life where you make sure you kind of organize your life in a way where you can do those 4 hours of great work every day, then that's awesome, right? You basically find what works for you.
Yep.
And you follow that. That's not going to be the same for everyone. For me, it's definitely, I could easily work way more than that. But it's dangerous, right? Because I have had periods where I'm just working 10 or 12 hours a day, like a maniac. And that might be good, like for a period of time, that might be good for my business even, but it's bad for everything else in my life. I think that the important point is that you kind of have to find the thing that works for you, right? Yep. And kind of build your lifestyle around that. And for me, it's more that I have to rein in this tendency to just get lost in work and forget about everything else. And so I need a system to ensure that kind of stays boxed in. And although, I also have to say, of course, it's also true that that one of the problems is that on the one hand, there's a lot of high-level important work you have to do, but it's also very easy to get dragged into this more menial stuff. Yep. And spend all day doing that, which is another kind of thing that you have to get under control. Yeah.
Well, I also wanted to circle back real quick to the idea of systems in your business, and specifically as it relates to your content marketing. And when I read your blog, there's a difference between a blogger and a content marketer, right? The blogger is writing articles, hoping something will stick. The content marketer is creating content that attracts people, engages, and leads somehow through some eventual path to a sale, right? And so my question for you is, how do you sort of automate, if you do, your content marketing? What are your systems around content? Because I know you're big on writing, I know you're big on video, but it's hard to produce like a consistent quality of highly engaging content. How do you manage that?
Well, that's one of the things that I'm still working on, building a system for that, because so far it's been only me doing all of the content, and it's always been a bit secondary to a lot of other stuff. So the amount of content I'm putting out is usually dependent on just how much other stuff is going on. And so that isn't governed by a real useful system. But now that I have more people working on the marketing front, that's something I'm working on improving. But okay, with content marketing, in terms of how do you create the content, or I guess one of the systems I have is that I pay close attention to what people are saying. So a lot of the stuff I do is essentially based on feedback, and a lot of the content I produce is based on questions. So I'll produce a piece of content and I'll pay close attention to. I always invite people to comment, and I pay close attention to what are people saying in the comments. What kind of questions do they ask? What kind of messages do I get after I publish this piece? And then that gives me ideas to base my next piece of content around. And I feel like that's, in one way, the easiest way to do it. And in another way also, the easiest way to make sure that your output remains relevant and useful is when you're doing it, it's almost like a dialogue, right? Rather than just me sitting there thinking, oh, what should I write about next?
Yeah, they're telling you what to write about.
Yeah.
So, and as you're running your business, you're kind of traveling around the world, or are you staying put most of the time?
Well, it's a bit of both. I tend to stay for, basically I don't hop from city to city. I tend to stay in every place I go to for several months. And so that way I actually get to live in a place and be there for a while before moving on somewhere else. And that's also something that, doesn't, because that's one thing I notice is if I'm actually traveling, if I'm actually on the road and moving around, that really, my productivity takes a serious hit. So it's much better for me to, move to a different place and then be there and do work and all that for several months and then move to a different place again.
Okay. So I think that pretty much wraps up. We've gone like 50 minutes, so we've covered a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of bit of advice that you want to leave the audience with? Just something, from your heart relating to business, kind of words of wisdom from all of your days in the trenches? Yeah,
for me, the main thing is that, for me, the most important realization that started this journey essentially is that I realized I can apply myself to something, and if I do it, if I go deep enough and I put in enough hours, I get good at it. And that's been the most important thing, because when I started this, I was totally clueless. I had no idea about any of this internet business stuff. I was the least qualified person you've ever met to start or run a company. But the one thing I had is I had this strong belief that I could identify the skills that I needed to make something happen. And then I could put in the hours and I could put in the work to become proficient at those skills. And that's been, I sometimes say this is the only thing I know about life. It's the only thing that I know about life, is that if you identify the right skills, you put in enough work, you put in the practice, then you will get good at it. And that's what takes you where you want to go. So it's also the anti-dreaming, because having big dreams and visualizing them and believing in yourself and all that doesn't matter. In my opinion, I'm very pragmatic. So in my opinion, it doesn't matter at all. You might as well not do any of that. What matters is, what are the skills you're working on? What are you doing every single day to get better, to take you towards the most important thing that I think any entrepreneur can take on board.
It's a very Eastern European outlook, very like mechanical, pragmatic. I think so. You know,
guess, yeah.
I'm Ukrainian. My dad is like a hard-boiled Soviet scientist, and you bring up any of that new age stuff with him, he'll shut you down, man. You know, he's like, no, it's all about hard work. It's all about working smart, working hard, being competent, and you can dream all the dreams you want. But if you're a schmuck and you're not putting your nose to the grindstone, then you're not going to accomplish anything. You're just going to be a hippie, basically. So,
and this is, and I totally agree. This is actually, if I can continue on this point for a second, one of the things I noticed is I have, on my computer, I have a folder structure that I've been working on for years, where basically every time I start a website or a project or a product, it goes in a folder, right? And then all of the stuff, all of the copy and images and content and videos and so on for that project are in that folder. And one thing I noticed is that you can determine the success of the business by the size of the folder. All right. If you look at more successful businesses, you open the folder and there are hundreds of subfolders. There's just piles and piles of work there, right? Hundreds of videos, hundreds of posts, all this, so much work has been put in. And lo and behold, the business is successful. And you look at some of my less successful projects, you open the folder and there's not a lot in there. And so to me, that's kind of also, a proof of this relation between the amount of work you put into something and the result you get out of it.
Deep, very deep. So Shane, where can people find you online? And what are you working on right now that you'd like people to know about?
All right, so you can go to thrivethemes.com.
Yep. That's one word,
thrivethemes.com. And that's where you can find, the WordPress plugins and themes that we're selling. That's my main line of products right now.
Wasn't that scrumptious? Thanks for listening to the Membership Site Success Podcast with membership site expert Vic Dorfman. For oodles of free tips, tricks, and tutorials on crushing it with recurring revenue, go to www.vicdorfman.com. It's what all the cool kids do, and you do want to be cool, don't you? See you next time.